I'm a small business person. I've helped create over 3,000 jobs, hundreds of jobs here in the state of Arkansas. I've run companies up to 2,600 people, and don't you get tired of hearing politicians talk about all the I's? But I got to let you know a little bit about myself. I served in the state house. I was on the 8th Republican to be elected to the state house since Reconstruction. I was the 5th Republican to be elected to the state Senate since Reconstruction. So I understand what it's like to kind of swim uphill. I was able to reach across the aisle, and on a bipartisan basis, I was able to get the vast majority of my bills passed, including 2 strikes and you're out, which is the strongest violent offender statute in the United States. I did a lot of work in literacy because I understand that if we don't help equip people with the skills that they need to be employable and to help their kids learn, we're going to continue being behind the 8 ball in the state of Arkansas. And I did a lot of things in the drug arena because that's one of the things that is eating away at our society. And we've got to do something about that if we're going to fix our country. But I stayed out of politics for 14 years because I did what our founding fathers said you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go back to the farm. You're supposed to go back to business. You're supposed to serve for a while, do your best, and then go home. Give somebody else a shot. So I didn't run for re-election. But when I started looking at some of the problems that Beth Ann and John have talked about earlier today, I started looking at spending that is completely out of control in this country. I started looking at bills like cap and trade. I was talking with a gentleman from the oil and gas business just a minute ago about how devastating that would be to our economy because we continue putting ourselves at a disadvantage vis-a-vis all of the other countries in the world because we follow the rules and they don't. So we continue putting ourselves behind the 8 ball in terms of unemployment. Then I started looking at things like Obamacare. Folks, there are good provisions in Obamacare, but let me tell you something. That is going to kill jobs. It already is right here in the state of Arkansas. We simply can't afford it. We can't afford the $200 million price tag. We can't afford to have the unemployment that it is going to generate in our country. And we all know that. And yet it still got crammed down our throats. Now we in Arkansas understand that. 70% of the people in Arkansas understand that we can't afford that $200 million a year price tag. But there is a more important principle in mind and at stake, and that is our Constitution. Because when the federal government can tell you that you can buy a specific product in violation of the 10th Amendment, the federal government is going too far. And if the 10th Amendment goes down, many professors have written that federalism as we know it is no longer going to be able to survive, which means the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, and others are sure to follow. We cannot let that fundamental change happen in our country, folks. We have to stand up this year. We have got to draw a line in the sand. We've got to say you are either on the Obama, Pelosi, and Reid side or you're not. And in this room tonight, we are not. Yeah. So what about our state? Folks, we have an amazing state, and I love it. I've lived here since 1975, all but a few years. All 4 of my children were born here. I've had businesses here since 1975. And there's not a better place to live in the entire world. I wouldn't be living in the state of Arkansas. But we have some challenges that we have to realistically address and get to the bottom of those problems. In our economy, we have to look at it and say, why do we continue to lag behind other states? Let's look at the root causes. First of all, we are 39th in the country in terms of our business-friendly environment. We can fix that starting on day one. We have a tax system that puts us at a disadvantage vis-a-vis all the other states, or most of the other states, in terms of being able to attract business into our state and retain business in our state. We have government officials, constitutional officers who think they are entitled to a $50,000 SUV or a Lincoln Town car in violation of Amendment 70, and you can't wring it out of their hands to give it back up. They're not setting the kind of example that we need to set in the state of Arkansas. So what happens? What happens is you ultimately end up with 8,653 state-owned vehicles, many of them being used for private use at the taxpayer's expense. We have to change that kind of mentality. We have thousands of great state employees out there doing a good job, but we have policies right now that are robbing their retirement system because we have former legislators in high government positions who made an average of $15,000 a year that as one of the executives in government, if they make $120,000 a year for 3 years, guess what their retirement is based on? $120,000. So they're stealing, in my opinion, money away from those hardworking state retirees right out of the retirement fund, and we as taxpayers are paying for it. Those are the kind of things that reduce confidence in government that we have got to change, and that's why I introduced ethics reform, 6 different points on reducing ethics reform so that we can change state government. Now, what does that mean? What it means is this. You're either a leader who sets the right example or you're one who doesn't. In all of my businesses, I have always done the tough jobs. I have scrubbed the toilets when we've taken over restaurant chains to set the right example. When I took over the most recent chain that I helped start and took over as president and CEO, I embedded myself in that company for 3 months. Like, have you all seen Undercover Boss? Before that was popular, a television program, that's what I did. For 3 months, they thought I was a manager trainee. I did everything. I learned everything about that business from the ground up so that when I went out there and said, I have already done what you've done, people knew that I was serious about them doing a better job of it. In state government, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to roll my sleeves up. I'm going to get in there, and on the very first day, day one, I'm going to take 20% out of the governor's office budget that day to set the right example. I'm going to take a 20% cut in my salary so that I can look every department head right in the face and say, if I can help start change and change the mentality in the state of Arkansas and have a more fiscally conservative and responsible government, I expect you to do the same thing. On the very first day, I'm going to help introduce legislation that will allow all of our men and women who have served in the armed services that have retirement benefits to have that be tax-free so that we can welcome people back into our state who have honorably served our country, put their life on the line for us. We owe them nothing less than that. Just like those people who right now are in Iraq and Iran in 120-degree weather, 60-pound packs on their back, full armor. They deserve to have us welcome them home and say, God bless you, thank you for protecting our freedoms, and not welcome them back and say, here's your tax bill. The last thing I'm going to do on first day is I'm going to take a census of the total number of state employees, and 4 years later, we're not going to have one single additional state employee. Let me tell you why. It isn't because we don't have tens of thousands of great state employees, because we do. But if we don't stop the growth of government, great state employees will not be able to get a raise because the people who are not doing a particularly good job are going to be siphoning off that money, and all the new employees will be siphoning off money. It isn't saying anything bad about our state employees. What it is saying that we can do more with less. We can have a more efficient government. We can start that on day one because I know how to do it because I've done it in business, and I'm going to do it in our state government. You're going to see me on the back of a tractor out on a roadside. You are going to see me in the classroom. You're going to see me in the revenue department, because people in my administration are going to understand I am serious about changing the way that we look at government and having a smaller, more efficient government. We're going to start that on day one. And the last thing I'm going to do is we're going to sell that $5.2 million airplane that Governor Beebe bought within the first 6 months of his administration. And I'll tell you why. In depreciation alone, that plane is costing us $7,500 per hour to operate that plane. If we need a plane within the state, we can lease one for a fraction of that cost. A fraction of that cost. But when I'm flying out of state, where it's practical, I'm going to be riding coach on a commercial flight. Because once again, I'm going to do the same thing I did in business. I always rode coach unless I paid for it, so that I could look at every one of my employees and say, if I can ride coach, if I can stay in an inexpensive hotel, you can stay in an inexpensive hotel. And when you get that kind of mentality, starting at the top, it will permeate government. It will send the right example. It will say, we are spending the taxpayers' money. We're not entitled to a darn thing. It's their money.